What's up guys? Today we're going to check out the Perlisten R210s subwoofer. Shout out to Perlisten for sending these subs out for me to review. Well, these look just like the bigger D215 and D212 subs. It's just as glossy, but it's just a lot smaller. Size-wise, it measures 21.5 inches wide, by 15 inches high, by 17.7 inches deep, and it weighs a hefty 96.8 pounds. It is THX Ultra certified if you're using just one R210, but if you're using 4 of them, it becomes THX Dominus compliant. It's in a push-pull configuration with one 10-inch driver on the front, with a second 10-inch driver mounted on the bottom. This will reduce even-order harmonics distortion by an additional 10 to 12 dB, and depending on the EQ mode, the frequency response for THX is rated at 20 to 290 Hz, large room is 16 to 290 Hz, and small room is 25 to 290 Hz. Around back, it's powered by a 1.3 kilowatt RMS short-term amplifier. There's a trigger input, unbalanced RCA ins and outs, balanced XLR ins and outs, and the main power switch. On the top is a 2.5-inch touchscreen LCD display, which will let you change the subwoofer settings and manage the DSP, which is powered by a 32-bit ARM Cortex M4 processor. I'll be placing both subs in my dedicated theater in the front and rear opposite corners. They'll be hooked up to a 12 altitude processor, and I'll be using a Zapiti media player and Kaleidoscape for demos. I'll also be turning off the room correction in the processor and using only the features built into the subwoofers themselves to get everything integrated into my system. Since they have their own built-in DSP, getting them set up was a relatively easy process. You can either access the settings on the touchscreen on the top of the subwoofer itself, or download the Perlisten app on either the iOS or Google Play Store. In the upper right corner in the app settings, there's language, app version, and an About Us page. Back on the main page, there's a group function which will volume gain attenuate according to the number of subs to the THX reference level. You can adjust the master volume from a -20 to a +12, and on the bottom you can see that I've got subwoofers hooked up. It'll give you the name of each one and how they're connected, which is via XLR as you can see here in the green. Tapping on the icon to the right, the first section is the EQ mode, which we went over earlier. Next is trim, which you can choose between -2.5 and +3. Under crossover, you can turn that on and off from here. Choose a slope from 6 dB to 24, adjust the crossover from 160 down to 30 Hz. There's a phase adjustment from 0 to 270, time delay from 0 to 100 milliseconds, and you can change the polarity to positive or negative. The next section is PEQ, which you can turn on and off. You can adjust the frequency band from 16 to 200 Hz. Change the Q from 0.3 to 20, adjust the gain from -20 to +3, and you do have 10 bands with 3 memory presets, so you should have no problems getting this dialed into your system. The next section is the input control. You can specify which input will turn on the subs. Use a 12-volt trigger per input, and adjust the gain from a -6 to a +6 for the RCA and XLR inputs. Under setup, you can choose between 60 minutes and 5 minutes before the subs turn off. Adjust the auto on sensitivity between low, medium, and high, adjust the LCD brightness, check the firmware version, and the last option is reset all. And that is it for all of these settings. Since I've recently reviewed their flagship subwoofer, the D215s, let's check out the same demos on these and see how they stack up. First demo being the Blade Runner 2049 eyeball scene. It's got a killer sustain tone around 35 Hz that'll loosen up anything not secured in your theater. That note, it just slices through the front of your chest straight through your back. It's clean, it's controlled, it doesn't have any boominess or strange noises from the driver or the enclosure. And typically I don't like to overdrive a subwoofer that's been loaned out to me for review, because I don't want to send it back damaged. But I kept raising the LFE level to the point of, you get that nervous feeling that your significant other or maybe the downstairs neighbor is going to start pounding on the floor feeling. It's like that you're doing something wrong that you shouldn't type of loudness. These didn't bottom out or do anything to let me know that they were reaching their limits. And we're talking relatively small subs here. Next demo are those bombastic tanks and machine guns in Fury. If you want to check out how tactile your subs are, then this is a great demo. Am I listening to the D215s again or what? Because these little subs at their size might be the most hard-hitting pair of 10-inchers I've heard yet. They've got such a light but brute force impactfulness to their attack. If you can imagine how fast a bullet gets shot out of one of those machine guns and the impact it must produce when it hits, that's how fast and reactive these sound. Some smaller subs that I've heard might have the same speed, but they definitely don't have the same hard-hitting feeling. You know, the slam to the chest kind of feeling. So these do hit like much larger subs. Maybe not exactly like the 15-inch Perlisten, but pretty close to the 12s. And because these have such a light, twitchy agility, I paired them up with some R5Ms, which would turn them into a killer pair of full-range speakers. I played some Victor Wooten through the system, and holy sh**, could you hear the articulation and speed between every string pluck. They didn't have any noticeable overhang or slop. I know some die-hard audiophiles don't like to use subs for 2-channel, and I kinda sometimes think that way too, but I can honestly say that these 10s are just as musical and accurate as any high-end tower that I've reviewed yet, and it'd be a perfect complement to any 2-channel setup. Okay, so back to home theater. Let's see how low these can drop and give Underwater on the Kaleidoscape a listen. It's got a DTS HD 7.1 mix that dips down to 20 Hz. Just like in the Fury demo, when those steel grates explode, it's an instantaneous explosion of back-to-back-to-back-to-back bomb drops that ends with a bass drop that hits so low that it's that type of feeling that makes it feel like you're floating on air. So the amount of air that these can move, while it's not quite the same as the 15s and 12s, is enough to let you know that there's actually still sound emanating from the subs. There's a lot of subs that give you that initial explosion, but fail to deliver that extra low resonant frequency that follows. These had no problem delivering that. And lastly, we'll check out the Edge of Tomorrow demo. It's got a DTS mix that dips into the infrasonic zone.
For even on the air, this is
If there's one thing that really impresses me, is getting a subwoofer in for review that's light enough not to need a hand truck, small enough not to be an eyesore, and digs deep enough not to self-destruct on this demo. I mean, I've had subs twice this size that can't touch this little tenor. But again, just like the bass drop in Underwater, yes, it digs super low, but it won't do a substantial amount of damage in the single digits, where you might fear the structural damage of your home theater. The good thing is, once again, the DSP kept the driver from distorting or being driven too hard, so while it didn't pressurize my space like the larger Perlisten subs, it still gave me a large portion of what's down there, just in a smaller dose, and it remained surprisingly clean going down that low, and that loud. Now, it did take a few measurements in my space. Keep in mind that this is the response I got in my room, so it'll more than likely be very different for yours. The first one is the sub in the front corner. You can see I've got a big dip at 55 Hz. The second one, I get a dip at 40 Hz, but combined, it's a lot smoother. With some PEQ and phase adjustments, I was able to get it a bit better with a better transition with my speakers. You can see it's clean all the way down to 7 Hz, which is super impressive. Although 7 Hz on these 10s versus the 15-incher doesn't quite have the same authority as I mentioned earlier. At the time of this video, the R210s subwoofer is selling for $4,000 each, although I believe the price is going up to $5,000 come May 1st. I think at this point, I'm pretty much a fanboy of anything Perlisten. The speakers are phenomenal, and even their cheapest subwoofer seems to be an endgame level product, you know, for this specific size. I don't have any real negative criticisms about the subwoofer, except that maybe it still is a little pricey. But from a performance standpoint, this blows away so many bigger subs that I've had in here for review. Everything that I've said about the D215 and the 212 applies here as well. It's the cleanest, most robust 10-incher that I've heard for both movies and music. It's got a very capable DSP that makes integrating it into your system a breeze, and it looks good doing it. I think unless you've got a really large space or want the absolute lowest extension or maximum SPL, then sure, go for the bigger models. But if you've got a small to mid-sized space and want to keep your speakers as inconspicuous as possible, then this is a no-brainer. It's as good as it gets. The R210s is the deadliest 10-incher out there. Only thing sucks about it is that it doesn't come in matte black. Now, if you guys are interested in grabbing this or any Perlisten products, you can grab them at our channel partner, Dream Media. You can find contact links down below in this video's description. So what are your thoughts on Perlisten subwoofers? Have you heard them, and how do you think they stack up to the competition? Leave your comment down below and let me know. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video if you found it useful. And if you'd like to support the work that I put out here on YouTube and want to get exclusive content, consider joining my Patreon. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.